911. What is the address of your emergency?
78. Help!
Alien to 911, operator 6180. What's the address of your emergency?
1797 Sumter Street. We're being robbed at gunpoint.
No. They're following me to my house. The guns are already out. She's shooting. Okay.
Hello and welcome to Stop the Threat. My name is James Towle. On this week's episode, we take you to the state of Tennessee for a reenactment of crime which we call Prowler Chase. Thank you for joining us this week. On today's show, we're going to talk about a foot pursuit, which may not be what we look forward to. But let's talk to law enforcement and ask them how they feel about a foot pursuit. LT?
Well, when I was younger, I was a little bit like a beagle. When it ran, I pursued it, and I thought they were a little bit fun. There was a moment in my career, though, I changed my thinking and really found out how dangerous they were. I was chasing an individual who had been in a vehicle pursuit. He smashed his car into a house and then took off running. And as I'm chasing him through dark areas and backyards, I was just about ready to tackle him. I had an angle on him, and all of a sudden he was running with like a strange kind of off balance that made me, for whatever reason, cut to the left, wait a bit, and then tackle him. I was taken into custody and cuffed him, and when I went back, he was running somehow across a line of vehicle axles. If I would have tackled him at that moment,
Wow.
my career would have been over. And I started rethinking about the wisdom and my thought process and even my tactics during foot pursuit, that I shouldn't just automatically, if it runs, chase it.
Jump out of the cruiser and take off after him. How do you feel about that, Dianna?
Well, I was a lot like him. I enjoyed a good foot pursuit, and they were usually faster than I was, so I enjoyed it, although, it was more about setting up a perimeter and doing things more like a basset hound as opposed to a beagle that might be a little bit faster and actually catch something. But I always enjoyed a good foot pursuit. Now, if we take that into the citizens, being a citizen and doing a foot pursuit, I think that we would all say that that's probably not a good idea. That's not something that we would encourage.
Okay, before we move forward on that, Don, you want to add anything from law enforcement?
Pursuits of any kind, vehicle or on foot, are always scary and always with a dubious outcome at best. And what I always worry about is, are they setting me up for some type of an ambush that could be lurking around the next corner?
Yeah, and I think you referred to something earlier about that, and the fact that you don't know where they're going to take you.
You know what they're probably going to do, and remember, if a citizen feels like pursuing, they're running probably where their friends are and their weapons are, not where your friends are and weapons are.
Right. And I think we'd all probably agree that one of the reasons for that, for the lack of interest in foot pursuits on law enforcement, was the deployment of dogs. Okay? Yes. It was worth the department's $10,000 one way or another, and the other was helicopters.
Yes.
Right? I mean, because the fact of the matter is, nobody wants to get out of the car in the middle of the night and chase somebody. I mean, I know you said you liked a good foot pursuit, but had you had the choice of yes or no, I think you probably would have said, yeah, let the helicopter and the dog find him. I'll be right there. Huh? What's wrong with that?
Well, police officers still pursue on foot.
Yes, sure.
But the difference between a police officer and a citizen, they've got backup, helicopters sometimes, radios, firearms, taser, all of those things. And a citizen, he's running into the unknown.
Right. And if a citizen is pursuing someone on foot, does the threat still exist if he's doing that?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
Once you take that first step towards a suspect that's fleeing or retreating, if you will, legally, you're on your own. How are you going to justify the threat continuing?
Right. Right. I think law enforcement only can do that. I don't think a good law-abiding citizen can do that unless there's something there that he would be forced to pursue. And when we come back, we'll come back to that, and I think I have more to add before I show you part one. Don't go away. Welcome back, viewers. We've been discussing a foot pursuit, and we're basically discussing foot pursuit by law enforcement. However, the reenactment today is going to be about a good law-abiding citizen who chooses to do a foot pursuit. But Lieutenant Dan had a comment to make before we go to part one.
You know, if you're thinking about the castle doctrine, think about it this way. You can't enforce the castle doctrine once you've crossed the moat. That's all I have to say.
Okay, and that's well said. I know certainly well documented here in Texas. Someone did cross through someone else's property, and shots were fired, and laws were made on that night alone. Yes. But before we go into all that, let's just watch part one.
Thank you, that was lovely. I got the dishes. It was that neighbor's stupid dog again.
Honey, leave it alone. It's probably just saw a squirrel or something. Did you hear that?
Yeah. I'll go take a look. Must have been a raccoon.
Oh my God!
Get back here! Get back here! Hey!
Okay, as I said early on, this is a good law-abiding citizen. He's in a neighborhood which is pretty common around the country. You want to go with anything on this?
Well, I'm thinking that he's letting the outrage of the attack get the best of him. You know, he's in the confines of his own house, the safety of his house. He's looking around outside. Suddenly somebody jumps him. How dare you? Come back here. And then he starts the pursuit. And you can't let that emotion override your good common sense.
Right. That's that adrenaline.
Yeah.
What struck me about the beginning of the part one of the series was that there are things that you can do to be safe at home. And part of that is to close your blinds. Right now, they can see everything inside that's going on in the house, and they can't see anything outside the house. So if you do hear something, A, close your blinds when it's at night. And B, if you do hear something outside, shut your lights off, turn the lights on outside, and kind of take a visual inspection of what you can see from inside the house, call the police. There's a lot of things that he could have done instead of just going outside without a flashlight. So
Okay. I'm going to speak for him for just a second. This is my home. This is my property. I hear a noise. Do I immediately get on 911 because I hear a noise, or do I go out and look? Hey, I'm probably going to go out and look because I'm the kind of a guy who's going to go look. Right or wrong, I might want to take something with me when I go look. What do you think, LT?
Well, yes, you want to go out prepared, and as was said, he didn't have anything to defend himself with, no flashlight, and I can't understand why he gave what I would call a two-for-one, where he brought his wife out with him. So now they're both out there, no one's standing by with the phone. It just tactically was not wise also.
So you would not have had your wife come out. See, I'm looking at that going, you know, the fact that my wife came out with me, now we've got two people involved in looking at this investigation, and maybe she should have had the phone. Yeah, I'm good with that idea. Would you rather her stayed inside?
It's not stay inside so much as why both be right here when you can separate
yourself out.
Right.
Yeah, okay, I like that idea of spreading yourself out again.
And she can be your backup. She's got the phone. She can be the best witness that you have to what's happening. Because there again, once you left the confines of the house, suppose it was half a dozen guys out there.
That's a good point.
And not just one hapless, peeping Tom or something, or whatever this fellow's malfunction was. Yeah. You know, it could have been 2 or 3 guys out there.
That's a good point.
Now all of a sudden you've got a really bad situation.
Right. I don't think I'd have left the house without a gun, only because if I'm going to hear this thing 3 times and I'm actually going to leave to go out, the dog did not break a flower pot in my driveway. All right, so I'm a little confused here. I'm probably going to take the gun. And when I come back, we'll find out exactly what did happen. Don't go away. Welcome back, viewers. We're talking about a foot pursuit, and we're talking about a foot pursuit done by law enforcement, and we're talking about a foot pursuit which may not be a good idea for a good law-abiding citizen. If law enforcement has second thoughts about doing it, there's no reason why you should do it. Now, I get the part, it's your castle. I get that. I think we all get that. But if you're going to go out and investigate part of your castle, you might want to be armed. And in this case, the wife goes behind him, which we have a pro and con on that. So pick the pro and con up.
Well, you know, the way they did it is what I had a problem with. If the wife comes with, or a friend or whatever, they shouldn't go in tandem. They should separate, kind of okay, if we're going to go towards contact, this person's going to be back here in the shadows covering and able to back them up, watch what's happening, and call for help. But to go together, you're giving them what I call a two for one sale.
Right.
That's the big thing, is the unknown. You're going out at night in your house, unprepared. Anything could be waiting for you out there.
Mm-hmm. So rehearsing something like this is not a bad idea either. What do you think?
It's not. No, that's the beauty of this show, is to give people a reason to rehearse and make plans and be prepared.
And just think in your mind, well, at my house, what would I do if that happened?
Right.
We call it when-then thinking. When this happens, then I will do this. And that's what preparation's all about.
Okay, perfect. Let's watch part 2.
Must have been a raccoon.
Oh my God!
Hey, get back here! Hey, come back here!
Don't move! Stop! Stop or I'll shoot!
Yeah, okay.
Oh, boy.
First thing I want to say is, boy, his wife moved pretty quickly on this, didn't she? I mean, I'm happy with that. She was pretty bold, and she moved forward, and she shot the guy to the ground. I might want to argue the point that maybe the 911 call came late.
In the entire,
Did anybody notice that?
In the entire scenario, it seems like it did come a little bit late. I mean, obviously, he's already assaulted, trespassed, assaulted, and run away. So
she's not thinking about that.
No.
She's thinking about her husband. He's in danger of who knows what. 911 was not on her radar screen at that point.
But we all agree it should have been.
Should have
I mean, that should have been made. That call should have been made in the kitchen.
In a perfect world, they'd have never left the house.
A 911 call should have been made when the dog was not breaking the vase outside.
True.
I mean, that's when it.
True.
But once it happened, it's two events, and the wife protecting the husband was understandable.
Get back here!
Whether the pursuit should have ever taken place, I understand it also because it's adrenaline.
Right.
But it's not. Adrenaline doesn't make us wise.
No.
It makes us maybe faster.
Right.
Very difficult case to justify legally in many jurisdictions in this country.
Number one, did he need to call 911 when he heard the sound the third time? You know, is it easy for us to say that that would have been a good idea? I don't know that I would have personally.
No, I think most
Again,
people
I
would
would
not
have
have.
gone outside to look, armed.
You don't have to dial 911, but you can call the police dispatcher at the business number and they will answer it. And then you can say, I heard something, and officers will drive by, they'll check it out. And you'd be surprised how many times those things lead to an arrest.
Okay, especially if something else has maybe happened in the neighborhood yesterday or
Right.
2 hours ago.
But not 911. You don't have to dial the emergency number, but you can still call that other number.
No, I don't want our viewers to be afraid to call 911 anytime they think that they need to. This is their taxpayers' money. They have the right to call 911 whenever.
And I think we've said this before, law enforcement themselves are not going to be upset that you called them and they come up. I mean, they're going to knock on the door. Right. They're going to actually want to look at you if you made the call.
Not necessarily. You can ask to remain anonymous and just say that, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. But going back to this, you know, don't dismiss the dog. When we are in foot pursuits, that's our kind of our greatest little ally. If we've lost sight of them, is that you stop and you listen for the dogs.
That's right.
So, you know, that's a little something else that you can go along with the lights and stuff. But when you're pursuing somebody, or when you're in an incident, you want to create distance between you and the assailant. So, you know, okay, let's say I do want to be a good witness, a better witness. I want to get on the phone and I want to tell them where this guy's going. What's your intent here? Are you going to tackle him and get in a fight and possibly lose, or, you know, stay several hundred yards away from him? And if he does turn around and come back, you have an option of turning around and fleeing yourself.
Well, you got to think, before you take off, if they're carrying away my television set, I'll call the police. If they're carrying away my child, I'm going after them.
Okay, right. And that's really a good point. Of course, that's a very good point. And I think you referred to it earlier, and I have a note here, that distance is a factor between you and the bad guy. You only have a short time to make a decision. We come back, there's a lot we haven't discussed. Don't go away. You know, we're discussing what's taken place here, and so far we haven't really discussed the shooting end. But is the shooting justified? Okay, let me just start right. Was the shooting justified?
That is going to be up. That is going to be completely up to her and her justification and what kind of injuries she had. It's the totality of the circumstances. So, can she tell people why she was in fear for her husband's life? Absolutely, but that's something that as citizens that you don't maybe practice as much as we do in law enforcement, is telling your story. So if you don't understand what you see and how to put it on paper and tell somebody else about it, then that could get you in a lot of trouble. You could be justified, but if you don't know how to relate that to the law enforcement end of it, that could get you in a bad spot.
Was it justified?
Well, I believe the shooting was justified because in her perception, and she'd have to explain her perception, her husband was in danger of death or great bodily harm. But the other side, when they go after for civil damages, they're going to argue, but for the foot pursuit, the shooting would have been unnecessary.
Exactly.
And that's the problem.
In the jurisdiction where I live, this would be a very, very tenuous case at best, because they're going to say that it was only through your actions that it escalated to the next level, which involved deadly force. And as a citizen, your only obligation was to call 911 rather than chase this man down. And look at the bad guy. What's his side of the story going to be? Yeah. Hey, I was walking along the sidewalk, minding my own business. A dog broke that vase out there, and all of a sudden this maniac comes out of the house and is chasing me.
That's exactly what would take place.
It's exactly what would take place.
There's a huge civil case
and our people,
waiting on the sideline.
And our watchers, our viewers, need to know that side of it.
Because that person's mother is going to be interviewed, and she's going to say, yeah, I sent him up to the 7-Eleven or a convenience store to buy some milk. What do you mean? What do you mean he's dead? You know, that kind of a thing. How could that happen?
He's a good boy. He's never done anything wrong.
Right, and every mother's going to say that, which is going to make a very difficult case.
Yes,
so if we leave the civil end out of it, let's just go back to the criminal end. A fist fight between two people of equal stature and maybe the difference in weight is very small. Does I get a shooting out of that? Do I shoot someone for that?
Not where I live.
Well, honestly, I've been to hundreds of fights, and I've never shot anyone who was punching someone else. But I'm trained, and this is a different set of circumstances. If it depends on the surface he's on, if it's concrete and the head's pounding off the concrete, if he has some physical disability that she knows about, maybe. But generally speaking, fist fights don't end in death or even great bodily harm.
Sure, it's a wife. She's trying to protect her husband. You know, it would seem the way things came together there that there might have been some training involved, and they're looking out for one another. I mean, this is not out of the realm of reality.
No, it's not.
This is very real. It could happen. I would expect, and as we all would, that our spouse would try to protect it. It's just that squeezing the trigger part. Let me give you the follow-up on this, because you might find it pretty interesting. The follow-up was no charges pressed against the couple. That's nice.
Good.
The dead man was identified, but not until much later. And one of the rounds that the wife fired actually did hit the husband.
Oh, wow. I saw
ouch.
him holding his shoulder.
Right.
Yeah, that hurts.
So, I mean, I guess the outcome, I guess it's hard to say the outcome was great, but there was the outcome. There's a lot more that we could do with this one. I'm going to try to find some more like this, viewers, because we left a lot here. Thank you for tuning in this week. I know you have lots of choices. Be safe, be trained, be alert.